Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Today is Sunday, January 21st, 2024. Um, let's start by, as we do always, by making aspirations, setting our intentions, saying the four measurables prayer. May all beings
Beings
of
of
happiness
happiness
and the
and the causes
causes of
of
happiness,
happiness.
may
May
all
all
beings
beings
be
be
free
free
from
from
suffering
suffering
and the
and the causes
causes
of
of suffering.
suffering. May
May all
all
beings
beings
not be
not be
separated
separated
from the
from
happiness
happiness, which
that
is
is
free
free from
from suffering.
suffering. May
May
they
they rest
rest in
in
equanimity,
equanimity,
free
free
from
from
attachment,
attachment,
anger,
anger,
and
and
aversion.
aversion.
Um, Making aspirations is very uh, important and very potent, actually, you know. Um, Especially when you're making aspirations that are very much in accordance with the view of Buddhism that we've talked about before, you know, the view of dependent arising, uh, impermanence, and non-duality being the ultimate nature of reality. Uh, that concept of non-duality is something very difficult for us to really, let alone just kind of wrap our heads around, but to actually kind of bring that into some kind of daily practice is extremely it's difficult in our pre-K stages of being practitioners here. So you make aspirations knowing that this um, ultimate truth exists, and making a commitment and saying that you know may this wisdom and may this merit kind of uh, ripen in me so that I can be, you know, a benefit to other beings, and whatever effort we make towards this path can be a benefit to other beings. That's very much in sync with the view of Buddhism, even though on a relative level, it's very difficult to kind of put that into practice. So on a relative level, we do things like, you know, sitting meditation and, take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and we make aspirations and we make dedications, you know, um, to be in line with that view and that, you know, ultimate truth. Um, I'm going to read a little quote and then I'm going to hand things over to Victoria. And this quote really deals with impermanence again, impermanence being, really one of the foundational truths in Buddhism. In our modern times, if people are asked what the essence of life is, we often hear to go to school, to get a job, to buy a house, to get married, to have children, to have a long and healthy and prosperous life. Even though these aspirations are usually motivated by the desire for constant happiness, we instead often experience transitory happiness and unsatisfactoriness. Knowing that we can't take any family, friends, or possessions with us when we die, and given the rare opportunity that we have, is this all that we would like to achieve while we still have our precious human life? Knowing that we've experienced problems and sufferings before, can we be certain that we won't experience something similar or something worse after we die? If we really contemplate all of this, we begin to look for something that we can put into practice which will prevent us from experiencing future suffering, and that is exactly what the Dharma is intended for. That is from the Jang Chub Norbu Instagram page, JANGCHUB.NORBU. If you're on Instagram, which I'm assuming all of you are, it's a really great page to follow. And this teacher in particular who was quoted was Chom Trul Rinpoche, CHAMTRUL, who I don't know much about, but John Chub Norbu Instagram page has wonderful quotes from wonderful teachers. And that quote, it's not saying that, having getting a job, going to school, buying a house, getting married, having children, have a long, healthy, prosperous life. There's nothing wrong with that, or that's somehow some empty kind of pursuit. But again, we're talking about relative and ultimate truths in Buddhism. And as he said, um, these aspirations, which are, meaningful aspirations, love and, family and things like that, um, they are kind of have the undercurrent of desiring this constant happiness, the idea of being separated from our families, or the idea of misfortune or illness or death, falling upon members of our families, our loved ones, is unbearable, and so difficult. But it is the nature of reality that those things are all temporary, so we used that understanding to motivate our practice, to motivate, to kind of overcome our laziness, to overcome our complacency, to light a fire under our butts, as they say, to practice the Dharma, Okay. Victoria, thank you.
Hi. So today mainly I want to just speak about one point and read some quotes from Garchen Rinpoche's book that is called Mahamudra Teachings. This is by our root Lama, Garchen Rinpoche. And before I read a quote from him, I just want to say that we always start by trying to find some kind of a deficiency or a lack with ourselves. We often criticize ourselves and others, and we look for something we don't have, something that is, some kind of something that's missing in us. But in reality, the most precious, most incredible thing, our Buddha nature, is something that has always been there, will always be there, and is the basis for all the things that we think, we say, and we do. It permeates every moment of our mind stream. It grounds every thought, emotion, action, whether these thoughts, words, and actions are virtuous or non-virtuous, meaning ignorant and afflicted, because they're based on our self-grasping rather than knowing the true nature of things. And again, as to what Michael was speaking right now, the two truths is this in reality, is that, there's the real state of things, and then there is the relative way in which we perceive things. Our perceptions are relative because they're based on so many different factors, and they're very limited. And whether we know it or not, they're ignorant because they're based on, in principle, they're based on dualism of self and other, object and subject, dividing reality into these two sides. But even to that dualistic divide, other factors are added. It's like a soup. A thought is a composite of so many different kinds of things. And yet at the same time, the thought arises in the space of our Buddha nature, in the space of reality, ultimate reality of ourselves and all things. Thought arises and it dissipates into that same space. Reality always grounds everything that happens. Everything that is a relative happens on the basis of an absolute. Often, metaphor of the sky or the ocean is used. The ocean is used in sense to say, well, thoughts arise like little waves. But are the waves separate from the ocean? And are the waves possible without the ocean? And so it is very in Kagyu tradition of Mahamudra, which we don't really need to go into any kind of detail. It is called the co-emergent arising, meaning that the ultimate and the relative truths always arise together. Reality, the ultimate state of all things, always grounds whatever other little momentary arisings that happen on within that space. And it is the space of our mind, the absolute nature of the mind, and the dualistic relative nature of the mind, the thought arisings of, concepts that are imbued with our afflictions, that are imbued with self-grasping, and that are imbued with ignorance of thinking that there are solid things out there. These thoughts are just as they are. For example, if we have an experience of someone in this very moment and we call them bad, we stabilize and we want to make permanent something that's already changing as we are interacting in that very moment. We are changing, they're changing, but the ignorance is to think that things are permanent. That is like the big component of ignorance, is to make something impermanent permanent, because after all, everything that happens arises and ceases, and so it's a flux. We've taken multiple breaths, we've changed. That other person also in the interaction has changed, and certainly in an hour, in a day, in a month, that person will change. The ignorance is to hold on to this opinion, to this relative narrative story that feeds some kind of a thing inside us, to call that person bad or negative or whatever, and kind of try to fixate them and ourselves in that moment as something permanent that exists permanently. And Garchen Rinpoche, in this book, he says that the nature of conceptual thought is also Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is another word for the ultimate state, for reality of all things, ourselves and others and phenomena. And then Rinpoche says, and this is what is called in Mahamudra in Kagyu lineage, co-emergent wisdom. It is knowing that the relative and ultimate, the two truths this is the magic, this is the glue. They always arise together, but one is a foundation and the other is the movement within the space of that sky-like nature of our Buddha nature, of our mind. And Rinpoche says, we have to realize the conceptual thought as having the nature of Dharmakaya, meaning ultimate truth. Then at the same time, we can realize or actualize the realization of the non-conceptual thought, meaning experience, perceive the ultimate nature of our mind by simply observing the mind, because the movement, the conceptual movement, the deluded movement, happens within the space of awareness. That space is always aware. The quality of where the movement of conceptuality happens is, in fact, the nature of our mind, which is just pure cognizance, pure awareness. In order to do that, when you do meditation with a straight body and mind, imbued with mindfulness, right in this place, right in this time, in the moment, with the mind also set in a relaxed position without movement, then just look at the mind. The mind is so clear, so fresh as it is, referring to the nature of mind. Then within that state, when the mind moves or a thought arises, because movement is thoughts arising, look at it, look at the thought directly. Just look at the thought. Don't think about the content of it. Don't jump on it as a vehicle and get out of your meditation. Just nakedly observe. See what nature looks like. See the difference between the mind before the thought arises and at the time when the thought arises. Look and see what the difference is between these in their own nature. Then you realize that with regard to the nature of mind, there is no difference between when it is abiding, meaning still, simply looking cognizant of its own nature, versus when it is moving. A movement is what is referred to as conceptual thought. While the thought is moving without ceasing, that nature is clear and fresh as it is the mind itself, meaning there's no difference between conceptual mind and our ultimate Buddha nature, mind in its ultimate nature. It is like when we look at the ocean and water before a wave arises and know this is ocean, this is water. And when the waves arise from the ocean, we look at the wave and we know this is also water. The water is so fresh, whether it is a wave or a still ocean, there is no difference. The wave is not separate from the ocean. Without the ocean, there is no wave. So in the nature, there is no difference. And so what Rinpoche is saying with that quote is to hold awareness in that kind of a spatial way where we can hold looking at our nature, being aware of our nature, and the movement arising in it. That is meditation. That can happen in everything we do, anywhere we are, whatever we do, with whomever we're speaking. We hold that, the two truths as a union. We as an experience, the union as an experience, we hold the awareness of our nature and the movement inside it. And we always remember that when we're looking at faults in ourselves, when we're looking for defects, when we're asking ourselves, why am I so this and why am I so that? I'm lacking so much. You know, we remind ourselves that we have Buddha nature, and all these things that seem, you know, at the moment very childish or very grasping, they're still taking place within the pristine Buddha nature. And that we also carry when we think of others. No matter what they do, we always remember that on the relative level, they may be very afflicted, very self-grasping, but at the same time, just like us and all sentient beings, they have Buddha nature. So we bring that into us. And also what Rinpoche is saying in this, what is meditation and the mind of, you know, mindfulness and awareness, is that when we're interacting, we keep that spaciousness and let things arise, knowing that they arise and cease, remembering their impermanence, remembering their interdependence. But he always urges us to think that mind is one. There is no self and other. In an ultimate sense, there is no self and other. And so bringing that to all of our behaviors, to all of our interactions, you know, bringing that kind of mindfulness is the same as bringing really wisdom and compassion, their inseparability of wisdom and compassion. When we can think this way of ourselves, have wisdom and compassion towards seeing ourselves, and we bring that wisdom and compassion toward others when we're interacting with them, wisdom and compassion never leaves us. And that is just a simple you know, awareness of our nature, of the nature of all things. I mean, reality is not parceled up into little things, into little soup ingredients, you know. Reality is that is the foundation of all things, and that is what we, that is the shared, that is the basis of everything. So uh, bringing that to everything and maintaining that awareness, and you know, also being able to go through difficult arisings, because some of the movement, the arisings, can be very, very difficult, you know. That relative stuff of conceptual mind, of how we see others, of how they affect us, of how they trigger us, what they do to us. If we can keep mindfulness of the union of the two truths, we will always be okay. We, we must, we are always okay. We just have to remember that our foundation is the most magical thing that there is, as well as all other beings' foundation is the most magical thing that there is. And that foundation never, never leaves. It never changes. It is indestructible. It is always present. It was there in the past. It is going to be there in the future. Otherwise, nothing is really possible. And it is there in the present when things are arising, you know, and the flux and the movement of the relative truth is happening, and we're a part of it. So always remembering the two truths, and also remembering that the quality of maintaining the two truths is wisdom and compassion, and bringing that to all things, making aspiration to our teachers to have our mind always be imbued with that view and with that quality of mind that, we make an expression, may that quality, may that pristine awareness always follow me, whether I'm asleep, awake, interacting, doing whatever things in life. And just remembering, we are not deficient, we and others are not deficient. They may be in a temporary way, we may be in a temporary way lacking things, but not in an ultimate sense. In an ultimate sense, our nature is perfect, was always perfect, will always be perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will meditate now. We did uh the last class was 2 weeks ago, and we did a very detailed review of the basic technique. So we won't do that again today. So if you don't know it and this is your first time on YouTube, Meditation with Michael Imperioli YouTube, you can find the class from January 7 and of this year, and find the detailed review of the basic technique that we do. But we don't want to do that every week because many of you are repeat customers. And then we'll take some questions. There's a Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar. You can ask questions. Two things regarding the questions. One is any of you who are new to this, who are interested in anything we're talking about in terms of these Buddhist concepts, on the Solidago Productions website, which you use to kind of get the Zoom invite, there's a list of teachers and books that we suggest for people who are interested. Regarding teachers, Victoria and I are fellow students. We're not Dharma teachers. We could teach meditation technique. It's a very simple thing to teach, just a couple of basic techniques. But as far as Buddhist concepts, we're just, reading quotes from our teachers or teachers that we've come across, that we, have admiration, reverence for, and discussing, our own practice, our experience of working with the teachings. We're not teachers of Buddhism. When I talk about authentic teachers from authentic lineages, that's not us. But if you are interested in Buddhism, we encourage you to connect with some of these teachers, watch their teachings on YouTube, read their books, go to the teachings, either in person or virtually. The more you connect with the teacher, the more your practice is really going to take root, flourish, expand. And really in the Buddhist teachings, it's really essential, to have a teacher. In the Dharma, it's really essential to connect to an authentic teacher from an authentic lineage. It's from my point of view, it's absolutely essential. The other thing I'll say regarding questions, because a lot of people ask specific questions on how do I deal with this situation or that, and it's like, these practices that we're talking about, be it sitting meditation practice, which we're about to do, or some of these other, discussions about mind. It takes commitment for any of these things to really take root or start to, affect some kind of change in your life or things like that. They're not quick fix methods by any means. They are a path, and as we know, a path is meant to be, walked or traveled, So this is not like a self-help method. It's not like a new age kind of, quick fix kind of thing. But it is a path. So we have to be patient, and a path takes commitment. Okay, So let's meditate. Let's sit in our posture. Let's relax. Let's breathe through our nose. I'm going to time us. Um, I may speak, I may not. If I do speak, just stick with the practice as I do speak. Keep your practice going. Remember, the body is upright, is erect but not rigid. You know, that metaphor of the guitar string, not too tight, not too loose. Just enough tension, just enough suppleness allows it to make the proper tone. Same thing with the body here. Same thing with the mind, really. You know, we have an alert mind, the mind looking at mind, but it's relaxed, it's open, spacious, but awake at the same time. Okay, I'm really speaking to those who have done this before. Let's really focus on that sky-like nature of mind, metaphor that we use, visualization that we use. The mind that we're aware of, the mind that we're looking at, is a limitless, stainless, infinite, calm, clear blue sky. Settle into that. Settle into that knowledge and vision. And look at it. Trust it. Be confident that you have that it's there. And then a thought has arisen. You've noticed. It's the key to the practice, is that you've noticed a thought has arisen within that sky-like nature of mind. Noticing the thought, being aware of it, and then letting it go, leaving it where it is. Don't follow it, don't judge it, don't push it away, just notice it, watch it dissolve, like a cloud that has arisen in that sky-like nature of mind, dissolves back into the sky without leaving a trace. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to leave you alone for a couple of minutes and see how that goes for you. Stick with the practice. Good. Sometimes I can be a distraction, I bet. So let's stay with the practice. If a thought has arisen, just watch it dissolve back into the sky-like nature of mind, and rest, settle into that space, spaciousness. You can use it back to the breath, focusing your attention again on the place where the breath is moving in and out, where your nostrils meet your upper lip. If that helps bring you back to your own mind, which you've never really left, which has not left you. Great. Okay. Okay. We can go to a few questions. On the Instagram page, Jangchub Norbu, JANGCHUB.NORBU. Also, Pema Lotus, PEMALOTUS. Those are my two favorite Instagram Uh, how do I start a meditation room if I work all day in my home? Do it before work or do it after work? I mean, on your break? I don't know. Question about relationship. I don't know. Do you find your relationships better because you practice Buddhism? I mean, yeah. I mean, everything's better. My, speaking for myself, I can't speak for Victoria, but the relationship to the world, I feel is kind of better. I mean, it's not that you don't go through difficulties and anxieties and problems and worries and disappointments and things, of course, but I found the level of aggression lowered. Um, the afflictive emotions that we always talk about, like anger, grasping desire, jealousy, impatience, things like that. You start to become aware more when they happen, and then and when you're more aware, you have the ability to kind of apply an antidote at least, or just um, like for instance, last night I had to work last night, and something when I began, immediately there was something that triggered my defensiveness, impatience, a little bit of anger. But for some, the fact that it came up made me aware. I was aware that it came up, and I was able to say, okay, just you know, instead of acting out of that place, let it settle and try to have a little spaciousness because it was about interacting with other people. Have some spaciousness in this interaction. That's it. That's a very subtle shift. I'm not saying it's, some revelatory thing of becoming, a Buddha or something like that. But a subtle shift is can be very dramatic if you're coming from a place of being really possessed and acting out of very, afflictive emotional states. What do you recommend for frequency of practice? I recommend making it a very regular, daily or almost daily thing. I think if you really want some kind of progress on this path, it has to be something that becomes regular. Think of it in terms of, a fitness routine. You're not going to become fit and healthy by working out once a week. I mean, if you want to learn a musical instrument or something like that, you're not really going to learn it from practicing once a week or having a lesson once a week. Things that you have to implement on a very regular basis. I recommend starting with very short sessions. Sometimes you can get a little gung ho. Oh, I'm going to do 2 hours a day. And then you do that for a couple of days. And then you realize I don't have the time every day to do 2 hours. So I'm going to put it off now. And then you don't do it. But listen, if you can't find 10 minutes to commit to something of a lot of value, you're fooling yourself. You're just avoiding it. So, um, short sessions, 10 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. If you can do it every day or almost every day, I think it helps if you make it a routine, like part of your morning thing. You know what I mean? If you, like eating breakfast or something. The subject of non duality, can you expand on that? It's a very, that's a very gigantic concept, but a very, very important one. Victoria was talking about the two truths, right? There's a relative truth. The relative truth is, really what we experience on a day to day basis. Um, I'm Michael. Victoria was here. You're out there. Everything's in relation to. I'm Michael, and I'm not Victoria, right? I'm a New Yorker, meaning uh, New York is a relative thing because it's in a relationship to a part of a whole, right? I live in New York City, which is part of a New York state, which is an American citizen. I'm not a citizen of, you know, Brazil. It's relation to I'm Michael, I'm not Victoria, I'm not you. The ultimate truth, which is not relative, is that we are also part of a whole, right? A universal whole thing, that uh, we don't exist as islands, right? I'm sitting in this house that somebody built, many people built, and it's being heated because someone, you know, built a heating system and, put the oil or however this house is heated, put the oil in, drill the oil. Um, we're sitting here because someone developed some kind of software technology to allow us to experience a meditation class with people in different parts of the world. My breakfast is the result of farmers and people working on the farm and animals. We look at that as a very compartmentalized thing that we just take for granted, but I can't exist with any of that, right? If there's not a farmer to get my food, I'm going to die of starvation, right? Farmer to grow my food and somebody to ship it and someone to put it in the store. Our true nature of existence is completely interdependent, and things arise in our life based on dependent or or, uh, origination, meaning there are many, many, many causes and conditions in play, in flux all the time, that are a vast web of interconnectedness and interdependence of many people and many factors, environmental factors. Um, so the ultimate reality is that everything in the universe is completely interconnected, and that's the nature of reality, that whole. This relative truth it doesn't exist on its own. First of all, it's completely impermanent, right? This body is going to, age and wither and die. There's no permanence to this. Actually, all the cells in this body are different than it was 7 years ago. So is it the same person, even though all the physical cells and stuff are new? I don't know. So non-duality is the ultimate, nature of things. Very difficult concept, especially in terms of how do we bring that into practice. And we have to bring it into practice on a relative level, which is why we make aspirations for the benefit of all beings, because if the true, ultimate nature of reality is non-dual, all beings and us are not separated. Right? So even if we act from a selfish place or a negative place, you're sending negativity out into the world, which affects all beings, on an ultimate level and a relative level. And if you make positive aspirations, you're sending that on a relative level and ultimately in an ultimate level. Sometimes I cry during meditation, not often, but occasionally. What's that about? It could be about a lot of different things. There's something that it could be something that you've been carrying for years, for decades, for hours, for days, and maybe you weren't aware of it, and just the kind of relaxation of the body and mind um, allows that energy of emotion just to kind of come up rather than maybe the tension that you've been holding to hold it down. Maybe. Um, I don't think you need to avoid it. I don't think you need to, just say that's wrong for meditation. I think if it comes up, it comes up. I would say during meditation, try not to get caught up in the story of why you're crying and just let it come up as an emotional, energetic quality and just let it be. Tips for meditation in loud, busy environments. I like trying to meditate on the train, but sometimes I can find the surroundings distracting. You know, you don't have to kind of avoid the surroundings. You can take the surroundings in, and maybe as part of your meditation or just part of your. I mean, you're not sitting on a cushion on the subway, right? In a meditation posture like we do here. That's You don't have to, right? You can sit on the chair or you can even be standing and kind of click into the mindfulness and that awareness that we're cultivating, right? While you're on the subway and normally maybe you feel, oh, it's crowded. This person, is annoying me because he's or she is, you know, blasting something on their phone without any consideration for the other people around them. I feel bad for this person. They seem like they're, suffering or something like that. All that awareness, and you can just um, have some spaciousness about being there rather than like checking out of there. Checking out of being on the subway. Kind of have some spaciousness and awareness of being there, and tap into like aspiration. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. That's very valuable, I think. Maybe say the four immeasurables prayer while you're on the subway. You know, I think that could help. Is living with a broken heart a sign of attachment? What if true love and soulmate love felt mutually? Is that attachment? Um, yeah, it is attachment. Can meditation's expansiveness heal a broken heart? I don't know, maybe. Um, what meditation can do is, make you understand attachment, and we're calling attachment like as it's a negative, and it's, um, talking about relative and ultimate truths, right? We see things from a completely subjective point of view. We see the universe, the world, from a completely subjective point of view that's extremely limited to the functionality of these sense organs that we have, right? Eyes, ears, nose, mouth, skin, even mind, which kind of interprets these sensorial inputs, right? I mean, these eyes are only these two little kind of gel like things that are pretty amazing because they've developed over whatever time and evolution. But think about, they're these tiny little gel like things that we perceive everything visually, everything in the universe that we're capable of seeing, we perceive through these little things. They have very limited function. You can't see behind you, right? You can't see beyond a certain distance. You can't see in certain types of without light, right? But yet we kind of think that that's the definitive uh, vision of, some definitive solid vision of the world. And it's not. It's a very limited subjective view, right? But that's okay, you know. Um, what we have to realize is that uh, our vision, our perception, is from our own, limited point of view. With that, we're going to be limited to certain things. We're going to be limited to certain behaviors, um, relationships. Um, it's hard to have this kind of like what we were just talking about, this kind of conception of non-duality and conception of ultimate nature of reality and things like that. Um, I think what I'm saying is a great so this subjective point of view is really actually a delusion, right? Because it's not the ultimate nature of reality. It's this very subjective view that's, you know, our delusion of self and other, right? There's a great story about Marpa, uh, was a Tibetan Buddhist master, um, a very revered one. He was the teacher of Milarepa, who was one of the most famous, like Tibetan Buddhist saints, if you will. Saints is not really the word, but maybe an equivalent. And Marpa had a son who died. And when Marpa's son died, Marpa was inconsolable. And one of Marpa's students say, you teach about this, delusion that we're deluded beings, that we see and experience things from this deluded point of view, and everything's an illusion, illusory, right? Because it's not the true nature of reality. Well, why are you so upset? And he said, because this was a great illusion. Meaning love, his attachment, I think if you're a parent, or you a lover, a partner, you're going to have attachment. That's the nature of those relationships. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Um, I think what we can do within that is understand impermanence, that we're going to be separated from our loved ones eventually, one way or another, hopefully later than sooner, right? And hopefully not under, extremely painful or tragic conditions, but we will eventually. And accepting that, um, some I think also can make things more precious in a way. As far as healing a broken heart, broken heart's gonna hurt. In this life where we're gonna fall in love, and if that's your karma in this lifetime, when that ends, it's gonna hurt. Whether it's breaking up or the death of a loved one or something like that. But I think we have to accept that and then try to expand that. If we try to expand that that loving heart that we have towards our loved ones, and try to expand that a little, open that up a little bit more to a larger circle and a larger surrounding. I think that can be very useful for practice. And know that, just like everyone else, other people have the same, they have their loved ones, you see people on the other side of the world who are, in war, and, parents losing their children, and relate a little bit through that, wow, how would I feel in that situation? Can cultivate a lot of empathy through having a loving heart, which I think is a very valuable quality. Can you be a Buddhist if you're a practicing Christian or Jew? I don't think so, because uh, Buddhism does not believe in eternalism, does not believe in a soul. Really, Buddhism, uh, these things that we're talking about, but Buddhism does not believe in a creator. Buddhists believe in karma, cause and effect, rather than some kind of divine punishment. Um, I mean, you can certainly have an interest in Buddhism and maybe read about it, and maybe if these concepts help you or not. But there's a really great book by Zansar Khyentse Rinpoche. Go to Solidago Productions, you'll see his name. The book is called What Makes You Not a Buddhist? Um, and being a Buddhist, what is it? You take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha being, uh, on one level, it's the Buddha, historical Buddha. On another level, it's your teacher, and on a more ultimate level, it's your Buddha nature. Um, the Dharma are the teachings. The Sangha is the community of fellow Buddhists, right? Taking refuge because um, until we reach enlightenment, we're going to, suffer being in this physical form, birth, old age, sickness, and death, right? Until we transcend suffering by reaching full enlightenment, which is the realization of our true nature, and that becomes, our reality, you know, we need a refuge from that. And that's why the formality of becoming a Buddhist is taking these refuge vows. But like I said, I mean, if you're a practicing Christian or Jew and that has a lot of meaning and to you and grounding, and you believe very much in all those things, then that's fine. And if there's some concepts that you like, and you like to meditate, you don't have to be a Buddhist to meditate, of course. Can you meditate on a specific topic while keeping active the nature of mind? Sure, you can. You can meditate on a specific topic. You can meditate on impermanence, for instance, and just think about how you're impermanent and your loved ones are impermanent and think. But I do suggest, if you really want to take that extra step going beyond this simple sitting mindfulness meditation, to really connect with a teacher, because they can really guide you in terms of what to meditate on and why, you know. I think it's really important. During meditation, my mind immediately goes to a place of stress. Does that lie within something I'm doing wrong, or is that natural? When um, you're probably, if I mean, I don't mean to be presumptuous by saying this, but you're probably stressed, period, you know? And by stress, you mean like all these daily anxieties and things that you're worried about. It's like life is very stressful. I mean, keeping a job, dealing with your family, dealing with your coworkers, dealing with the world in general, constant bombardment of news and horrors that are going on in the world, and social media, and checking your messages and returning your messages and paying your bills. All these things that are part of our day to day existence can be very stressful. When you sit down to meditate, what happens is, um, we're not in our usual caught upness of these things, which dominate our mind from, you know, morning to night in this constant chain of thought. And you're kind of interrupting that by sitting, calming down, and looking at the mind and seeing what it does. They say when you first start meditating, the mind is like this rushing river of thought that just keeps going because you're looking at it. And maybe over time, it becomes a slower stream. And then maybe, when you become like a master of meditation, it becomes a tranquil pool or something. So that is natural. You're not doing anything wrong. Has meditation or Buddhism changed your perspective on life and your thoughts about death? Well, Buddhists believe in it's kind of a horrible reincarnation. That's a translation, because all these Buddhist terms are from either Sanskrit or Tibetan or, Chinese or something. So we're, incarnation, rebirth. Buddhists believe in that mind has never been created and has never been destroyed. Almost like mind consciousness is some kind of unifying, universal, energetic fabric of the universe. And then mind kind of attaches to this some physical form and then, you know, we have this incarnation, right? Carne meaning like, I guess, meat or something, a physical, thing. But um I like that analogy of, like, so you have a candle that's lit and you have a candle that's not lit. You take the unlit candle and you light it from the candle that's not lit. Now you have two lit candles. So you put out the old one and now you have this one. Is it the same flame or is it different? In my daily sitting practice, I rarely have the sense that I have connected with my ultimate nature. Now, first, before I keep reading what you're saying, is, of course, that's what I said. This ultimate truth, we have to relate to it on a relative level. Relate on a relative. We have to approach it on a relative level. That's why we make aspirations. You know what I mean? When we say may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, we don't have the power to make all beings, happy, right? At the end, when we dedicate, by this merit may all beings attain the omniscient state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. We don't have the power to do that, but we can make aspirations and use this lifetime to make an effort towards that. But sometimes when going about my daily life, I seem to spontaneously be connected. Walking in the park, I had the sudden clear understanding that my passing mood is not who I am, and I relaxed into something that felt unobstructed and fresh. Is this the fruit of meditation? Well, I think it's if we all truly have Buddha nature and it's there, then you know it's not impossible that it bubbles up and that we can touch it from time to time. I have lost a good friend. He ended his own life because of physical pain. I'm wondering if Buddhism can offer comfort or perspective about suicide. I don't know. Comfort, refuge. Buddhism can offer refuge. When you're talking about these tragedies and the difficulties in life, that's why we do it. I don't know about comfort. Um, and refuge, but meaning, listen, I mean, I can barely broach the subject of non-duality, which they also use the word emptiness, which I hate. You're talking about the concept of shunyata, which is non-duality, dependent arising, interdependence, um, this delusion, things not being as they appear. This is the limitations of the relative truths. We're really just not even scratching the surface of this very vast, difficult concept. You know, so you're taking refuge in these teachings until these realizations kind of come. That may not be in this lifetime. But in the meantime, we can make aspirations that all beings, move towards that and eventually get there. Comfort, I don't know, Perspective, what it can, I mean, maybe take away from a lesson in impermanence again, Suicide's a very difficult thing to deal with, one of my very closest friends committed suicide and it was very, very hard. You know, and make aspirations when someone, what you can do is when someone, this is very effective, I think. When someone passes away, as a Buddhist, um, often I will offer the family members, especially if they're not Buddhist, to order a puja. Puja is a prayer cycle that monks or practitioners will say to help people who have passed away in the bardo, which is the space between, in one aspect, it's a space between lives, right? Between lifetimes, to help this person or this being in that space find a better, or more, or a positive rebirth, if you will. You can go to Garchen Buddhist Institute website or Kopan Monastery, Kopan, and order a puja for that person. I think those things can be really helpful. Can we employ other breathing techniques like Ujjayi breathing? I don't know anything about that. I cannot speak to it. I've been wanting to practice meditation regularly because I learned about its tremendous benefits on a variety of parameters of mental and physical health. However, I find when I apply this functionalist approach to it, wanted to attain something out of it, I kind of take away its true meaning. I'm worried I might be gentrifying it. Have you ever come across this? Um, well, that's why we make aspirations that when we practice, we're doing it for the benefit of all beings. Um, if we were just coming here to learn meditation to relax, why would I need to say that? May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. Why would I need to dedicate merit from doing this class? By this merit, may all beings attain enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. Why would I need to do that? You know what I mean? I would just do it because I want to feel better. So by making aspirations and making dedication, we are acknowledging that there's a bigger picture here. Um, Buddhism really is about working with delusion. Like I said, that delusion of that subjective experience that's related to this very limited perception that we have through these sense functions, which we assume are the ultimate nature of reality, and they're not. Right? Buddhism is trying to teach us that that's an illusion, and what is the true nature of reality, and how we can somehow understand that. So yeah, I wouldn't use the word gentrifying. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think it's gentrifying. It's just kind of being, it's just limiting, and you're just doing it for yourself. There's a really good book, again, by the same teacher, Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche, called Not for Happiness. Because he says, if you're really just trying to feel good and relax, it's probably better if you take a massage, or do something like that, if you want to just calm down and relax. That really the function of meditation is, is to wake up from delusion. Books, YouTube channel, go to the Solidago Production website. Do I recommend any of the meditation apps? I've never used them. I can't recommend or not recommend them. Walking meditation. I'm not going to talk about walking meditation. I think walking meditation is good. I think it should be done with a teacher, and it should be done after you have a very solid foundation of sitting meditation practice. Otherwise, a lot of people who want to meditate, well, I don't have the time, I don't want to, learn sitting meditation, but I do walking meditation. But what they really do is go for a walk, which can be a very calming, relaxing, lovely thing. I love to go for walks. But it's not necessarily meditation. Maybe there could be a meditative quality to it in very vernacular kind of terms, because you're uh, calm, and you're just taking things in, which is great. I love taking walks, but I think it's easy to fool ourselves thinking that it's a meditation when it's taking a walk. You know what I mean? So, but there's, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, a wonderful one. I believe his, you know, his lineage, whatever. There's a lot of walking meditation. Maybe there's some books that he published about it, but I would do it under the direction of a teacher, whether virtual or in person or something like that. Do you have a suggestion for a place in LA to practice? You should do some research. I'm sure there's plenty of places. Garchen Rinpoche has a center there, although he's not there very often because most of the time he's in Arizona. He doesn't travel much because he's older now. But Lama Tubten Nima is there, and it's called Drikung Rinchen Choling, and it's in Arcadia. It's not far from LA. Drikung, Drikung, Rinchen, Rinchen, Choling, Choling. If I'm going through an extremely stressful time, would you recommend a longer period of time of meditating once a day, or meditating a lot during the day in short spurts? I'd recommend either one. I mean, whatever. Both can be effective. Maybe meditating several sessions in short spurts. But I would say if you're going through an extremely stressful time, to watch some teachings, not just meditate. Do you send out specific intentions of energy when starting these meditations? Yeah, that's why we make aspirations in the beginning. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering. That's the specific intentions of energy. If the body's impermanent, what is said of the body that achieves success? If the body dies, then what of a body of work? Well, listen, the body of work is going to go too at some point. You know what I mean? Eventually that's all impermanent as well. If one works on the body, then the body of work, is it all for the afterlife and not the life within? Listen, when you die, your body of work is not going with you. You're not taking any of that. You know what I mean? What you are taking is, the karma that you created. I mean, if that's a body of work, if you consider that a body of work, which I don't think that's what you're saying. Maybe if, I think it's um it's like when sometimes you hear people, are you concerned about your legacy or something? When someone asks somebody, are you concerned about your legacy? It's like, when you're gone, you're not gonna, your legacy is not going with you, and it's gonna have no, you're not gonna have any interest in it. Um, I teach meditation to teenagers. Sometimes I encounter the reluctant student. Wonder if you have suggestions. It's hard. It's hard to push people towards it. Sometimes attraction is the best. Example is the best way to attract. If people, and you said an example, or maybe even you're talking about it, inspires people. But it's not easy to maybe you can introduce them to this class if you think that'll help, or if you find a teacher that you think will appeal to teenagers, that might be helpful. um okay, we're going to close. Let's dedicate the merit by saying our dedication prayer. By this merit may all beings attain the state of enlightenment, conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you, Nick Solidio, our producer, who makes this possible through his kindness and generosity. We will see you next time.